on Instagram. Best place, the medium that I use most on the social side is LinkedIn. But I want to encourage you, if you have questions at the end of this that you think about tomorrow, think about next week, think about a month from now, just send me an email. Best way to get me is brent@partnershipgroup.ca. And send me a quick email. I'd be glad to respond to you as quickly as possible, and we'll kind of go from there. So that's my contact information. I also want to encourage you, because there's people that are registered and not here tonight. There's also people that didn't register for this session but would like to know what's going on and probably have the information. So I would encourage you to be sharing on through Twitter or Facebook or whatever you want. And I encourage you to use the hashtag sponsorship reality if you want to share, and if there's pieces and bits of information that you think are valuable to the other volunteers in your organization, to other staff, to people in the community, that will help them and help you with your sponsorship program, then feel free to do so. One last little bit here. I do produce a commentary every week. It's a blog. It goes out by email. It's also, if you're following me on Twitter or LinkedIn, it's available through that as well. But if you send me an email at brent@partnershipgroup.ca, I can get your name and everything put onto the distribution list. And every Tuesday morning, you'll receive the commentary. It's usually a 1 to 2 minute read. 99 or 98% of the time, it is about sponsorship and about life and sales and all those sorts of things. And that 1 to 2% is when I go off on a tangent on some sort of rant about something like Starbucks changing their tea supplier and me not liking that new tea brand or whatever it is. But other than those few times, it is worthwhile content. And there's 3,000 or 4,000 people that are on the list and open it up weekly and take a look at that. So I encourage you to do the same if you wish. You can, again, just send me an email, brent@partnershipgroup.ca, or feel free to just go to our website at partnershipgroup.ca and you can sign up through there. So we have a great cross section here of volunteers and staff on the call tonight, from community-based teams, coaches, leagues, multicultural organizations, museums. I know that the Indian Head Grand Theatre folks are here. There's municipalities like Grenfell and Arcola and Sedley. So it's a great cross section. There's not only staff from municipalities, there's volunteers, there's people in recreation, there's people in culture, there's people in parks. And so I'm excited to do the presentation. When Joni sent me the list of the people that were registered about a week ago, I was able to try to adapt this a little better to make it more applicable to the people that are on the call. So again, it comes back to, if you have questions, don't hesitate to ask, whether you put them in now, bring them up at the end, whatever works best for you. What I find with most of us, especially all you folks that are listening tonight, is that you're all doing multiple jobs. You're all having 3 to 4 jobs, especially if you're volunteers. You've got a life to lead, you've got a family, you're volunteering, you've got other things that you're doing. And you're doing volunteering with your local Parks and Rec or association or your rec board. And if you're staff, you're probably doing multiple jobs. So we're all being pulled in multiple directions all of the time. And sponsorship just happens to be another one of those layers of things that's laid upon you to go and do. Hey, we need money for this. We need money for that. Can you go get a sponsor? Let's get a sponsor. And that's what's constantly happening. And it's become even harder to do, it seems, because of COVID. We can't go and talk to people as much, and businesses are not doing as well, and volumes are down, and we've gone virtual on everything, and our rec centers aren't being used, and nobody's been in our museum for a year, and all those sorts of things. So what I see is people being pulled from multiple directions. So the goal of tonight is I want to pull together a whole bunch of concepts and ideas, and there's going to be 12 of them that I developed. And those 12, don't expect to take all of it away and put it into practice. If you can take 2 or 3 nuggets and apply those, then we're doing really, really well. So the session plan for tonight is that first I want to look at this new virtual world for fundraising and sponsorship and how it works. I'm going to integrate into the session case studies and storytelling through the way about examples and things like that. And then, as I said, we'll finish up with questions and answers and question and discussion at the end. So it's not news to anybody that we live in a world where the game has changed. It's changed dramatically since a year ago or 13 months ago, where we would open our door to our museum, we'd open our door to our library, we would have people in them, we would have our trails being used, we'd have our rec centers open, we'd have our pools open in the summertime, and all these activities and fundraising would go on, and we would hold a gala, or we would hold a silent auction, or we'd hold all these things. We'd hold it at the community hall, and all of that came to a halt, other than the walking on the trails. And a lot of it, a lot of people were furloughed and laid off. We've got less people working, less people spending money, so sponsors had to make a decision. Yeah, I still support the museum, but I can't be a sponsor this year. I don't have enough money. So how can we do this, and where can we go to make all of this work? And that's what we're going to look at tonight. How can you generate additional revenues in this new world where the game has changed so dramatically? So that's what we're going to look at. We're going to look at what can I do? What can each of you do now, today, and tomorrow to be successful in this new world of sponsorship? So what I've created for you is the 12 steps to successful monetization of sponsorship and fundraising in the digital world. Now that's a really short handle and title, but it's but the idea is that I wanted to create, as I said, some steps for you, but also multiple ways that you can start to think about how you can make changes and what you can do, because you won't be able to do all of them, but at least you can do a few of them. And if somebody else in the organization can do a few more, then you'll work together and you'll have even greater success. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run through all 12 of them. I'm just going to list them for you, and then we're going to go into each of them in more depth. So the first thing that we have to understand is that things are different, and what you've done in the past just isn't acceptable anymore. And you can't duplicate or replicate your old programs on a virtual platform. We need to get creative, and we're going to see how to do that. Number 2 is it's important to understand the difference between fundraising and sponsorship marketing, because one's asking for money to help and the other is helping the business to make money. So we're going to look at that as well. Number 3 is understanding that virtual, social, and digital world are critical, not just in these times of pandemic, but for long-term success. Number 4 is that you need to know what it is that you have to sell and what is it worth. So you need to have an inventory of saleable assets. And now those saleable assets are different. They're different than the rink board that you used to sell, or the logo in the ice, or the right to hang a banner in our library. All of those types of things will still exist as we repopulate those facilities and those properties. But there are now digital products. There are now social feeds. Most of us were probably not in that digital and social world until we were forced to come there 12, 14 months ago. So that's changed, and we have to be aware of that and know what our inventory is. We need to understand that our partners, whether they're donors or sponsors, and we need to understand them in more intimate detail than we ever had before. We need to understand what they're all about. We're going to look into that. Number 6, halfway through, you're going to need to shift from a transactional deal concept to a holistic relationships. You're now climbing into bed together, and we need to adapt to make these things work. And that's what we're going to look at. So Part of that is undertaking what we call discovery sessions and work with prospects versus pitching packages. It'll be essential. So it's that shift in mindset from helping our prospects to just pitching them proposals. Number 8, there'll be a shift from stock packages, all those ones that you got the local printer to print up or you print it off your own printer, to customized proposals. Because what the drugstore needs, the IDA on Main Street needs, is probably really different in who they're trying to reach in the audience than the pizza place down the road. They have different hours, they have different objectives, they have different pricing. And so they're not always reaching the same people or the same message. So stock proposals probably aren't where you want to be anymore. Number 9, there's a need for the creation of an environment with safety, security, and sanitation. When we go back full time into the museums, into the theaters, into the rec centers, into the libraries, when we go back into these facilities, the consumer needs to feel safe and secure in going there. And the sponsor needs those people to feel safe and secure. Otherwise, they're not going to be there as a sponsor. Number 10, what you're going to find is communication is essential. It used to be we could pitch a package, they would buy it, we'd talk to them next year before the gala, and they'd do it again. We're seeing a huge shift. There needs to be more communication with our partners, more understanding, more ability to realign as things change. Number 11, storytelling is going to be critical. It's not all about pitching a product and selling another keg of beer or another pizza. It's about integrating and getting my brand out there, making people feel good about me. And sponsorship can do that storytelling, and it can do it in a virtual and digital world. And finally, stewardship or fulfillment will be the test of success. If you don't deliver on what you promised, those people aren't coming back. And the trackability in the digital and virtual world is incredibly greater than in the traditional world. So that's the 12 steps. That's what we're going to look at. We're going to go through each one of them individually and see how we can actually implement these on an individual basis, one at a time. So what we need to understand, as I said, is that things are different. What you've done in the past just doesn't work anymore. At least it presently doesn't, as we come in and out of lockdowns and lockouts. And yes, you can go to the restaurant. No, you can't go to the restaurant. Yes, you can play hockey. No, you can't play hockey. Yeah, you're okay to play on the field. No, you're not okay to play on the field. Our museums are open or they're not. And all those changes that are constantly going on as we go through the third wave of this pandemic. And so we have to understand that we have to shift our thinking. And that needs to be creative. Because just because you ran a gala doesn't mean you can take that gala and put it into a virtual entity and everybody's going to bring their own meal and sit down. It's not going to work that way. We have to find new tools that work in the virtual world and the digital world. So I call these the 7 most expensive words in business or in the English language. We have always done it that way. And we need to shift away from those 7 words. We have always done it that way, because the way you've always done it doesn't work today and it won't work tomorrow, especially thanks to the pandemic. So what we have to do is start looking at being creative and finding different ways to do things than we've ever done before. And in doing so, that becomes essential. So when I look at things like that, these doors will open up for us, that our sponsors will become more creative with us, but we have to take them ideas. We have to look at, for example, things like the CIBC Run for the Cure and the MS Bike and the MS Walk. They shifted their way of thinking. it wasn't about everybody gathering in one spot and going for that 10K walk or that 20K ride or that half day ride. They did it over time. They readjusted. And that's what we need to look at. In the same way that you might have had these workshops in different communities in the Southeast District in the past, but now you're doing it virtually. It's a whole different product. And so what's coming down is that we need to look at it. What about silent auctions? A lot of you have probably run silent and live auctions before at galas or events or banquets. How can you do that online? Because yes, you can. And guess what? You can offer lots more product, but it isn't open for 2 hours during dinner. Now it's open for a week at a time, or 4 days, or 6 days, almost like those live auctions that used to go on the radio stations that would run for a week. Your live auction or your silent auction can run over a longer period of time. The bidding can go up. You don't have to go and collect all the products. When somebody buys it, the person that donated that product will actually ship it to them. They'll be able to engage with them. So that sponsor or that partner that gave you the product to put into your silent auction will actually be able to engage one-on-one with the person that bought the product from them. And so that makes it more engaging for them. The online world offers that, something we didn't have before. So likewise, how can we look at our galleries, our art galleries, for example? Is there a way that our local artists can be doing things like art classes? Is there ways that they can be delivering those sorts of things? Can we do an engagement in our gallery online with storytelling and the history behind a painting, and moving to that perspective? And I'm not sure, but there is a program called Kahoot. If you ask any of your grandchildren or children, they're all using it at school and many other places. It's an online gaming system, but it's an educational process. So you can integrate an app like or a program like Kahoot into what you're doing online, so people can compete with fun quizzes and opportunities while they're learning product and information. And a Kahoot game may replace the walk that you had, and people can get pledged for how many correct answers they're going to have. So there's lots of things like that. There's also, when we look at the theaters, the live theater centers that are in so many communities, and the stage productions that aren't happening right now. What about taking those same volunteers that were on the stage and letting them run acting classes so that the whole community can be part of that? My daughter is 15, and she's big into the dramatic theater side. And last year, I mean, their school didn't produce a play. They couldn't. Just couldn't happen. But she's done online theatric training for the last year. There's 6-week stints. And at first, those were all free. And now, of course, we're having to pay for those. But they're different products. And we're switching from the way we've always done things to doing them a little bit differently and a little more creatively. So I think that those are some of the things we need to look at. We also need to look at that, you know what, there's not people coming into our rinks. There's not people coming into our gymnasiums and our recreation centers. But I know that some organizations and different communities across Western Canada, some of them did have hockey. You know what some of the teams have done, or some of the communities? They put in live streaming. So the parents that can't come in to watch their child swim because swim lessons are still on, but people can't come in to watch, or we can't come in to watch the hockey practice. There's no games, but there's practices. I want to watch my 12-year-old or 6-year-old child play hockey, or gymnastics. I know several gymnastics companies, groups that are doing this, and they're running live streaming so that the parents can sit in their car in the parking lot and on their phone watch Sally or Sam do their gymnastics routine and learning, or the watch them do drills in hockey or whatever it is. And once you start to live stream, now you've got, and this doesn't take a lot of technology. It takes a GoPro and a link. And so all of a sudden, if you want to take that technology to the next level, you can integrate it and you can have sponsors associated to it. You can have messaging built in. There's a lot of things that you can do once you go live streaming. And if you're the municipality, you can produce that because you're, all of a sudden now those rink boards matter. Why? Because the parents are actually watching on live stream. So there's those types of things that you can take a look at. And then why would you continue that later? Once you've made that installation and you're live streaming in an arena or in a gymnastics studio or any place else, and you're live streaming, why wouldn't you shift over when we all go back and there's games being played and there's meets being happening and those sorts of things, that all of a sudden you've got live streaming. Granny and Grandpa from Swift Current or from L'Orange can also watch the game now. And your sponsors are integrated into that messaging and into that live stream. So there's lots of ways that you can think about being creative. I'm going to show you now just another quick example. This is an older example, but it demonstrates a couple of things for me. Number one, it shows what the world used to be like, and we need to think of ways that the new world can operate, because we're not going to be able to continue to do things what you're going to see in here. This isn't going to happen for the next probably 5 to 10 years. But what can we do to change that? What can we do to replace that? So this is just a quick video. Like I said, it's a few years old, but it'll give you a good idea. Hopefully the sound is there.
Little League is a great activity for families. That's why Honda has been a long-standing sponsor. But after 17 years, things became a little mundane. Honda did the same things year after year, making families see the brand as dependable, but not really very exciting or fun. So this season, we made fun a priority at every touch point, completely revamping Honda's Little League presence. We took the annual sweepstakes and gave it a twist. We made everyone a winner, sort of. You could win big, like a trip to the Little League World Series, or you could win small, like a poorly sung rendition of Take Me Out to the Ball Game.
Take me out to the ball game.
You could win even if you filled out your entry form incorrectly. At the Little League World Series, most sponsors set up a typical booth. We set up Camp Honda. There were games like a high-stakes dunk tank. If you missed, you got doused. Or musical car seats. The last person standing gets a pie in the face. We even made vacuuming fun. And it could be shared on social media. We aired a national TV spot paying homage to mascot races while promoting the Odyssey's built-in vacuum. And we let those mascots run loose on the streets of Williamsport. And finally, we brought a little joy to Staten Island Little League, whose season was almost destroyed by Hurricane Sandy. We engaged with families in ways that made them smile, laugh, and feel understood. Because we're not just marketing at people, we're connecting with them.
So it's interesting in that video, and at the front end, they talked about that they made everybody a winner. And I mean, look at our roll up the rim to win contest. It's now gone digital, and everybody's a winner. There's never a try again, and you can do that digitally. What are they giving away? They're giving away. I mean, I bought a lot of donuts and a lot of teas and coffees lately, and the end result is that I've won every time, but it's always 20 points, 50 points, or 100 points towards my my Tim Hortons points program, which is great. But those are the things that we can do digitally. You can spin digitally, you can roll up digitally. And those are the things that we start to need to think about when we're planning our Canada Day celebrations and we're planning our events around the opening of the museum again for the season or whatever it is. We also need to look at how augmented reality can work, or virtual reality in some cases. But one of the great things that happened I'm trying to think of the name of the town. It was Louisville, Kentucky, and their baseball team is the Louisville Bats. It's a AAA ball team out of Louisville, and obviously when their season was shortened due to COVID, it didn't happen last year, and as a result, they wanted to try to support their partners. So what they did was they used an augmented reality program. So, and encouraged almost like a scavenger hunt scenario, like a Pokemon program. But what the whole concept was that you would go to one of our partners, restaurant partners, order food from them and do drive-by pickup, stop up front, they'll bring out the package, they'll give you your food, you'll drive off. But in the meantime, you need to take a picture of yourself in the car with their mascot, Batty, which is an augmented reality picture that goes in by using this app, and it's in front of one of the participating restaurants. As a result, the more restaurants that you got your picture taken at when you're getting food, then the end result is that you're entered to win everything from seasons tickets to game tickets to clothing to free food at restaurants. And that drove massive amounts of traffic in the first 6 months of the pandemic for their partners. So those are the types of things. What have they done? They've extended that augmented reality program and are now using it inside their stadium and running programs like that. So they're using augmented reality because they can't do some of the things that you saw at Camp Honda, like people running around and sitting in a van, and then more people running around. Somebody's got to clean those seats between each time. And that's going to come when we talk about the health side and the safety side. So what type of fundraisers have you done in the past? Mostly, I'm betting you've sold packages for galas and dinners that you've had. You're asking strictly for donations versus sponsorship. And you're specifically with sport and recreation events or cultural events. And you're collecting silent auction items. And you put up a banner for the sponsor and a logo on this and a logo on that. And you're selling rink board and advertising. So that's all what we used to do. But, and I know none of you are guilty of this is all that you did, but we're going to take a look at that shift from this historical fundraising into number two. It's important to understand this difference between fundraising and sponsorship. Sponsorship is a business-to-business transaction. Sponsorship, it's called sponsorship marketing. And sponsorship marketing is when somebody gives you and your organization, whether you're the theater, whether you're the library, whether you're the municipality, it doesn't, or the rec board, doesn't matter. They give you money, and in return, they are going to receive exposure. That exposure might be in the way of a banner. It might be the right to sample food. It might be the right to do a survey. It might be the right to set up a booth to get people to sign up for their product. Whatever it is, they're paying you money and they're getting something in return. So sponsorship is a business transaction, no different than they would pay money and get an ad in the newspaper or a commercial on the radio station. It's a business transaction. And what we have to look at then, what is fundraising? Fundraising is more philanthropic or donation. That's where we go to the business and say, please help me. We would like a donation of an item for our silent auction because we're trying to raise money for a new pool or to run or to shift our tennis courts, half our tennis courts over to pickleball courts. And some business might say, hey, I think that's great. It gets the seniors more pickleball courts. I'm in, here's $500. They don't get anything in return. They might get their name listed on a board, but It's not like they get to set up a booth at that pickleball court and be able to sell product to seniors, or they don't get a banner up. That's sponsorship. Donation or fundraising is when they give you something and have no expectation of anything in return. At least that's what Canada Revenue defines it as. So that's the difference. Sponsorship marketing, and that's what we're talking about, is when somebody gives you money and they get some value in return that will help them grow their business. Fundraising is when somebody gives you money with no expectation of anything in return. So fundraising will continue to go the way it always has, because people, especially in rural Saskatchewan and in the communities that you all live in, are committed to the communities. They're committed to helping and making a difference and providing swim lessons for children and providing pickleball courts for seniors and supporting the local museum to remember our heritage and all those sorts of things. And they will continue to do that. But where the shift is coming is on the sponsorship side. Those businesses are saying, I don't have as much money. I need now to get something in return. So that's the difference between those two. The third thing is that we're understanding that virtual, social, and digital are all critical to short-term and long-term. It's not just about, okay, we're through this pandemic, all this virtual stuff we were doing, we're not going to do it anymore. Like, I mean, take a look at the district. These virtual workshops have allowed people from across the entire district to participate this evening and in all the other ones that you're doing without having excessive hard costs of paying people to travel there, hotel rooms for being overnight, having to do it in multiple markets, driving, all those sorts of things. So this type of virtual world makes a difference. And you know what? You may come up with a fundraiser like a Kahoot program that is a great fundraiser that's online, and you're doing it now, and then you'll do it later. Just because you can have a live auction or a gala again doesn't mean you have to throw away the things that you have been doing. And maybe you need to look at it and say, I may not sell as many tickets to my gala. I may only have 100 people there. But if I have my auction online, my silent auction online, leading up to, and everybody, the people in the community hall on the night, as well as people outside the community hall, can also bid on these silent auction items, you'll raise a lot more money. You've gone hybrid or integrated rather than said, okay, we're past the virtual thing. The new world is going to have virtual and digital fully integrated. But it also opens, in the other example that I used earlier, if you're live streaming from somewhere, and just because you live streamed from the hockey rink during the hockey season when everything was closed down and parents couldn't get in and their kids were playing hockey, well, why is that stopping you from running a live stream at a baseball diamond for Little League? You own the diamond, Little League is using the field, but you can live stream it and integrate your sponsors in and let the parents watch. If they're on shift work or working on the farm, they have the opportunity that they can watch at home instead of having to be there. Or grandparents or uncles and aunts in another community who can't make the drive. So we've got those opportunities. We've got all of those opportunities to do different things. So when we start to look at it, we have opportunity to, when we're running seniors programming or yoga lessons in our community hall and our community centers. A lot of you probably went virtual for a time period, and now you're sort of getting people back in, and then they've closed them down again. But why wouldn't you run digitally or virtual sessions as well as face-to-face sessions when you possibly can? That will allow you to also have two products for sponsors to integrate into. Number 4, you need to know what you have to sell and what it's worth. And this is what we talked about earlier. And it's about building out an inventory. It's about figuring out and going and say, hey, I have an arena. Guess what? I can put rink boards. I can sell rink boards. I can sell live streaming. I can sell opportunities. I can put up digital screens, TV screens, LED screens in here, and we can run continuous loop messaging. We can also take a look at it, and we can allow somebody on Saturdays when we're really busy to set up a booth and hand out product or pamphlets or have information. We're doing some work up in a small town, mid-sized town, I guess, town of Morinville, just north of Edmonton. And one of their sponsors is a home builder. So on some of the busiest nights and when there's tournaments in town, what they've done is, and that home builder builds in quite a few communities in the county, what they're doing is they get to set up a virtual home on one of the top levels. So the people that are passing by and going to the stands, they can go and they can look and see what the fixtures look like, and they can talk to a sales agent. So instead of making people go to the show home, they brought the show home in, and it's not there permanently. It's only there at certain times. So it's about thinking differently. If you have space, what can go in that space? And it doesn't just have to be a booth. It could be a show home. So those are the types of ways that you need to start thinking about it. Once we go digital with that, they can message on the digital screens, and they can have ongoing messaging and utilize that format as well. So it's critical that you build out that inventory. Just like Walmart, they know at any given time what's on their shelves, how much product they have, how many bottles of Revlon, how many cases of Coke. And the same thing goes. You need to know how many of everything you have and what exactly you have to sell, whether it's in the library and the opportunity for every book that goes out gets a coupon in there from the local pizza place. That's an opportunity. That's an asset that is a marketing channel. Or it could be in that library. It could be, signage on the front. It could be that in the museum, the opportunity that different features are presented by different sponsors. And sometimes it might be if the product, if the company is old enough and the product is old enough, like for example, in Edmonton, in Fort Edmonton, the AMA, which is the Alberta Motor Association, similar to the CAA in Saskatchewan, it's been around for over 100 years. And one of the pavilions or one of the displays is actually a gas station that has a historic Alberta Motor Association signage in it, and they're sponsoring that display in that historic living museum. So there are ways that sponsors products can actually have product placement if they fit into a museum or a gallery for that matter. So, and likewise on live theater. So it's about understanding what you have to sell. Nobody would open a store without knowing what's on their store shelves, whether those are virtual products, whether they are physical products. You need to know what you have to sell and have that inventory. We had a client once that one of the things that they were selling was their golf tournament. And the lady that was doing the sponsorship sales, she was not a golfer. And I'll never forget, she called and said one day, so how many of these holes am I supposed to sell? I've sold 20 of them so far. Can I sell more? And it was like, oh my gosh, nobody told her there's only 18 holes on the course. So we were able to take the 19th hole and create the 19th hole as the post-game hole. And the 20th sponsor, we shifted into to the dinner sponsor. But it's understanding what your inventory is. Yeah, you've only got 18 holes to sell. If you've got rink boards to sell or live streaming, you're doing commercials in there or you're doing messaging in there, you don't want it to sound like NASCAR. You need to make sure there's lots of control over how much inventory you're going to have. Okay. So number 5 is that you need to be understanding your partners or your donors, your sponsors. in greater and more intimate detail than we ever have before. And it's funny, we do a lot of work in small towns. We're doing some work in Melville, so a larger city right now, but we're doing some work and helping them to go through and build deeper relationships with their sponsors. And I remember when we were talking with the staff at the city, and they said, "Oh yeah, I know so and so at Co-op. I've known them for years, and this and that, or at the the drugstore or whatever." But once we started asking questions, they didn't really know. Sure, they knew Sally at the drugstore, but they didn't know the drugstore business. And what they had been doing was selling packages and pitching product, and we'll get to that in a minute, instead of understanding the struggles that Sally has in her drugstore, and that her key audience is two groups in this case, and one is seniors. They get more prescriptions than anybody else, and they're in 2-3 times a week, different products they need, and they want advice. They don't just want to pick up the product like a millennial and leave. They want to talk and receive advice. And the other group is young moms. And so those are the two areas. And you're competing, down the street, like if in Saskatoon or in Regina where there's a Costco, or a Superstore in Yorkton, or any of those types of things. So you've got to be able to say to that and understand the business of the drugstore. So you can look at it and go, okay, the suite that you've been using really isn't of any value because your employees are working long hours and they don't want to use the suite and go to the hockey games. So why are you paying for a suite? Well, because that's what we sold them. Well, let's figure out, if they want to keep the suite, what could they do with that suite? And maybe they can create birthday parties in that suite. And so grandparents that are coming into the drugstore can enter to win to have their grandchildren go to a hockey game and get the suite with a bunch of food in it. So, or maybe we don't sell them the suite because it's not of value to them. But we don't know that unless we understand their business inside and out, whether it's the local credit union. Like, what is the credit union trying to achieve by putting their name on a building? Is it that they just want their brand to be out there? Are they trying to drive traffic? Are they trying to make their members feel good? Are they trying to get new membership? What is it that they're trying to achieve? Because if we don't understand their business, we can't help them in the traditional world and especially in the virtual world. Because we have so many more channels now and so much more product and inventory that we just talked about because of this virtual digital world. And now that we've got this, we need to take that and shift it. And we need to be able to shift it based on the knowledge we have of the businesses. So I love working with small communities, because so often the people will say, yeah, I know Sam, I know Sally at the pizza joint, I know Jim over there that runs the pub, I know the person that's running the gas station. But do you know their business? If you don't know their business, it's not going to work in the future, because you need to be able to understand their business to help them. And part of that means that we are going to shift from transactional deals to holistic relationships. Instead of selling somebody a sponsorship for our golf tournament, and then 3 months later going back and selling them a sponsorship to our gala event in November, and then selling them a sponsorship to our bowling event in February, and then selling them another sponsorship for the walk in June, we need to start to look to find out, wow, that's a lot of labor. Whether it's your volunteers or your staff, they're having to go 4 times to speak to the same people over and over again. And those businesses are feeling like they're getting picked on. And so why wouldn't we sit down and talk with the drugstore and say, last year you were in the golf tournament for $1,500, you were in each of these 4 things and it was $1,500 each time. So you spent $6,000 with us. Let's build an overarching program for $6,000 and have you in 3 or 4 of those, and then put together a deal that works for you instead of selling you something that you're getting table of 10 at the gala and you never have 10 people go and half your table's empty and it looks bad. So start thinking about understanding their business and then shifting to deals that are bigger and deliver more holistic programming than rather than just these stock packages that we keep giving them. The way we get to that is number 7. It's by undertaking what we call discovery sessions. And that's discovery sessions with prospects. So that means that we sit down, we go and we talk with the lady that owns the drugstore. We talk with the gentleman that owns the pizzeria. We talk to the couple that's running the pub down the street. And we understand their business. And that doesn't happen by sending them an email or looking it up online. It means going and interacting. I don't care what everybody tells you about virtual world. There's nothing better than going into a coffee shop and talking with somebody and understanding their business, letting them know you care. And now as a volunteer selling for the museum, you're understanding that business and you can custom build a program that meets their specific needs. And that means we shift from, hey, Sam, here's the package. You want a gold, silver, or bronze, 500, 1,000, or 1,500. Well, he's going to buy one. He's probably going to buy the 500, so you'll go away. But what if you built a package that actually worked for him or her and their business? They might spend $2,000 with you. They may take some extra money out of another marketing channel. They may add additional money to their marketing budget. But if it delivers results, and this is where the shift in thinking comes from fundraising and philanthropy to sponsorship marketing. Your job in the sponsorship marketing world is to help that business make more money. If you can help that car dealer sell more cars, if you can help that drugstore sell more add-on items, if you can help that pizzeria sell more pizzas on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday night, because trust me, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, they don't need any more business. And more business would probably just put them behind. So if you can do those things, they have money for you. But this takes a shift in thinking from what do we need at the theater to how can the theater help that business? And the only way you can figure that out is by having discovery sessions with them. Here's a stat for you. 88% of executive buyers want a conversation and not a presentation. Sit down, talk to them. Talk to them about the creation of what they're trying to achieve. Throw ideas out. It may be 6 coffee meetings before you build a proposal. And by the time you build the proposal, you should have already agreed on everything because you had coffee with Sally 6 or 7 times. And you talked about that suite and the use of the suite. You talked about the fact that you want to do something, be recognized for the seniors program. And well, we're thinking of doing pickleball courts. And would that help you to be associated with the pickleball courts? Yeah, that'd be great because that's where the seniors are. That's our audience. So you talk about all these things at those discovery sessions. You build out ideas. You bang those ideas off just like you would sitting in your rec room in the basement with a bunch of friends and coming up with a plan. And you come up with this plan and then you talk about it and you come to the conclusion and then you go write the proposal based on what Sally's already agreed to and you know you can do. So by the time you put the proposal in front of Sally, it's not a surprise. When she sees $5,000 on the bottom line, it's not sticker shock because she knew that was coming. She agreed to look at the $5,000 package because she liked the ideas that were being generated. And all those ideas are in there. And they're exactly what she agreed to. That is where it comes successful. not when you pitch the presentation, but what leads up to it. So that's the shift. Number 8. Oops, I missed this one. I always like to do the comparison of what's happening in those discovery sessions. And I like to compare it to a doctor. And your job as the museum, as the rec board volunteer, as the municipal employee, I don't care who it is that's out selling, your job is to go in and diagnose, talk to that business and understand where they hurt. Maybe they haven't got enough customers coming in the door. Maybe they have too many customers coming in the door and they don't have enough product. Maybe they don't have enough staff. Maybe they got high staff turnover. Maybe they're new in town and need to build their brand. You need to find out what their problem is, where they hurt, and then find the solutions that you've got in your inventory of assets. And you need to take that inventory, the pieces in that inventory that will help them to take away that hurt. Your prescription that you're going to write is the proposal. And that proposal is designed to help them achieve their business goal, which was recruit more employees or recruit more employees and build the brand. You're a doctor. You need to diagnose, but you can't do that until you understand and have run tests or done discovery sessions to understand what is wrong. And then you can write the prescription, and that's the proposal. It's really interesting because we can now do this just like doctors who are doing most of their calls virtually. We can do these discovery sessions if we need to virtually. There's a lady I know who sells for a lot of small organizations in Alberta, like gymnastics clubs and small towns and things like that. And during COVID, she actually had more sponsored discovery sessions in the period between June and December than she had in that 6-month period any other year in her history. And why? Because A, people had time. B, they could do it virtually. She didn't have to come to their office. They didn't have to get up from their desk. They could just sit at their desk, click in, 20 minutes, click out. And so, like doctors, we can do these discovery sessions by virtual means. And that is on a Zoom call or a Teams call or whatever it is. So these are perfect scenarios for us. And the digital world and the virtual world has created those for us. I would say, ultimately, there's nothing better than having coffee with somebody at Tim's and sitting across from them and talking. But out of the 6 meetings you had, 4 of them might be virtual and one might be face-to-face and one might be an email. So we mix that up. So number 8, and this is, I've been talking towards this, and this is a shift from stock packages to customized proposals. This is going from having a series of stock packages, the gold, silver, and bronze, because ultimately, like I said earlier, what the pizza joint is looking at and what the pharmacy serving seniors is looking at to achieve are two different things. Their audiences are different. Their objectives are different. Their goals are different. How could the same $500 stock package serve both of them? If it serves one, it's not going to be able to serve the other. So it's really just a gift. And that gift doesn't keep giving unless it's delivering some results. So that's why you want to shift to sponsorship marketing from fundraising. So this means that we go through these steps that I've talked about. Understand what you have in your inventory. Understand all the products that are available. And then once we understand what those products are, we look at our prospect list. We go out, we talk to either virtually or face-to-face, and we have discovery sessions with our prospects, with the drugstore, with the granary, with the different businesses, with the UFA or with the co-op. And we talk to them. We understand their business. We understand what their struggles are. And then we talk to them with ideas and concepts. And then we figure out what it is that we need to put into the package, and we build it out for them. We put the assets or the items like the rink board and the banner and the live streaming opportunity and the digital messaging. We put all of that into the package. And what goes in one person's package doesn't necessarily go in the other. Because what's going to help the drugstore is really different than what's going to help the co-op. So it's important that we understand all of that and we start to custom build our proposals. Custom build proposals mean that people care about you. Do you want to go to a doctor who just writes the same prescription from you because you and the last guy both coughed? No, you want them to understand what's wrong with you and then write a prescription that meets your needs, because his or her cough might have been different. Or his or her, they have diabetes and you don't, so the different drugs are going to have a different effect. So you need to customize these. It's a lot longer process, and that's what you need to understand. It is a much longer process than building out a bunch of gold, silver, and bronze packages and having every business in town get them dropped off and then go back 2 weeks later to ask them which one they want, and they say, oh, I haven't had a chance to look. And you go back 2 weeks later, oh, I can't find them. Can I get another copy? And you go back 2 weeks later, oh, and the event's over. So they didn't become a sponsor. So what we want to do is we want to customize that proposal. It takes longer to get there. It takes more work to get there. And it takes more work to custom build them. But as I said earlier, you typically don't build a proposal till they've already agreed to what's going to be in it and how much money they're going to spend. Your closing rate becomes way higher. And because the proposal is customized, it will work. And it will work for them based on the fact that it'll deliver results. And if it delivers results, they'll be back next year and the year after and the year after that. Number 9, there needs to be a creation of an environment of safety, security, and sanitation. Every study that we've seen, all of the data that we're looking at, and all the research that we're looking at is saying the same thing. When people come back in and go into the rinks, the museums, the live theaters, when they do that, they need to feel safe. They need to know that those seats are cleaned. Like, the airlines have no business right now. Like, it's just abysmal. I live in Nanaimo. We used to have 10 flights a day into Vancouver, and then you could fly anywhere in the world you wanted in Vancouver. But there were 10 flights a day on Air Canada alone between Nanaimo and Vancouver. There's one now, one flight a day. So the airlines are hurting. But I'll tell you what they're doing right is they are ensuring that everybody knows that between every single flight, all of the seats are sprayed down. Here's what they're doing to sanitize. Here's how they're managing the sanitation. Everybody's wearing their masks on the plane. They're telling you 4 to 5 times before you even take off that mask wearing is mandatory and all these sorts of things. So the end result is that you need to create an environment inside your facilities, inside your parks, inside your pools, your arenas, your museums, your galleries, and your theaters. You need to create a sense of security and safeness. And that means that there has to be hand sanitizer in multiple spots. You need to educate people to what you're doing to clean the seats between productions, what you're doing in the fitness area, and seeing people cleaning them. I travel a lot, or I used to. I don't anymore, but I had to travel recently, and I was up in the Air Canada Lounge in Vancouver, and then in Calgary, and I saw something that I haven't seen for 40 years probably, and that's a washroom attendant. After each person went into the stall and left the stall, that attendant went in and wiped down the stall. They had The second attendant was handing out towels and wiping the counters. As soon as you used that sink, somebody was wiping it down. And it used to be that you had attendants in all the washrooms. It didn't just have to be at the places like the Assiniboia Club in Regina. It was at restaurants and it was at theaters. Somebody was handing you a towel. Somebody was giving you the brush to comb your hair. Those were what the washroom attendants did. Well, you know what? That's coming back. And if you want to differentiate yourself, and if you want to make people feel comfortable, I don't know what the grocery stores are doing in rural Saskatchewan, but I know in Nanaimo that two of the chains of grocery stores here, they have a full-time staff person standing at the door, spraying down and wiping down the cart before you take it inside. So it gives you a sense of security versus going to Superstore that you're grabbing the cart out of the collection area in the parking lot and you don't know who touched it last, and then there's self-sanitizing stuff. I saw one of the grocery stores that has a here in town has a cart sanitizing apparatus. You come in and it goes through like a car wash, but it is a sanitizer for shopping carts. Those make you feel comfortable and safe going in. And that's what your sponsors want. They want to be aligned with that safety and that security, so that people coming into your gallery or into your theater, into your recreation facility, that they can feel good and they can see the IDA Drugstore's logo there and right next to the sanitation, or that there's a messaging that the lady that runs the local pub is talking about how important sanitation is in this fitness area, but we learned it as well, and this is what we're doing in our facility, just like is being done here, and we're proud to be the partners to make this safe for you to work out in. So people, the studies and the research have shown dramatically that people are not going to return unless they feel safe and secure. And sponsors aren't going to return unless you guys ensure that it's safe and secure for the public to come in. And that not just ensure that it's safe and secure, but show them how it's safe and secure. The other people that have done a great job with this in Saskatchewan, I think, is Everaz Place, and everything that they're doing, and the social media side, and utilizing digital for everything from all the stuff they're running, but also how they're making it safe and secure for you if you want to come onto their property, to go skate at Mosaic, or to come to the mini donut experience, or whatever it is. So those are the things that we need to be looking at. We need to look at how can we make it not only safe and secure so that people will come back, but how do we tell people it's safe and secure and let them be at ease? Because it's not just vaccinations, it's beyond that. And then how do we integrate our sponsors into that so that they can ride on that coattail, because that's where they want to be. So that becomes a critical part. And that leads me to number 10. And that is that communication is essential. And it isn't just communication, as I said earlier, about with your sponsors, but it's to the public. Hey, when you come into this rink, know that as you walk in, there is sanitation stations all around made possible by Tim's. And there's a digital messaging that's telling you that, or the live streaming messages says, remember, don't forget to use our sanitation stations made possible by Tim's, or whatever it is. And so those are the types of integrated elements, and that's the communication. We need to communicate that we are safe and secure in our facilities, and that people can feel comfortable coming into them. And then how we integrate that with our sponsors. And that communication goes all the way back to understanding what we have to sell, what's in our inventory. And then the fact that we're going to do discovery sessions or we're going to talk. We're not going to pitch product. We're going to understand what their needs are. And communication means we need to be listening to them. We need to understand where their ailments are, where they hurt. And then we need to discuss solutions, those prescriptions. Well, being at the golf tournament would allow your staff to be integrated with so many different people, and they can do it in a relaxed atmosphere. And you're telling me that that's your salespeople love to be out with other people and not in a sales pitch opportunity, but just building relationships. Well, our golf tournament might be your solution. So those are the things that you want to talk about and communicate about. And then by the time you put the proposal in front of them, the communication verbally and by email and by follow-up has all been done. And there is no surprises in that communication piece, which is the proposal. So that's not where communication ends, though. And that communication needs to continue. It needs to continue through the process. And we're going to get into that when we look at fulfillment. But I love this next slide because I found this, and it truly depicts the situations that we so often have when communication doesn't work. This first picture here is how the customer explained what they wanted. And then the project leader, how they understood it, how the engineer designed it, how the programmer wrote it, how the sales executive described it, how the project was documented, what operations were installed, how the customer was billed, how the help desk supported it, and what the customer really needed. I think that tells a great story. It tells us that quite often we don't listen and we don't integrate and we don't talk to our engineers or our staff inside the facility or the program director or the curator at the gallery or the museum. We don't integrate the right people and get them to talk to the prospect so that everybody's on the same wavelength, so everybody understands the same information, and we don't end up with some of the pictures that are here when really all we needed was a tire on a string on a branch. So the next thing that we're going to look at is just understanding the shift into the digital world. And that means the communication has to happen, not just verbally, not just over coffee, but we need to be sending messaging back, not only in emails and things, but once we start to create this partnership and it's in place and we've signed a contract, a lot of the assets we're going to give them is through our social and digital media channels. So if us as a library or us as a gallery or a theater or a rec center, a rec board or a municipality, we probably have an Instagram account. We might have a Facebook. We'll probably most likely have a Facebook account. We may have a Twitter account. So how are we integrating with those? How are we telling the world that follows us on Facebook that the local car dealer has done an amazing job in helping us to raise money for the new pickleball courts? Do we just tweet it and talk about the fact that Bennett Dunlop Ford made this impact? Or do we try to talk about Bennett Dunlop Ford and all the things they do in our community? Not just for our gallery or not just for our pickleball courts, but talk about them holistically, because that makes people feel good about them. Not just what they do for us, but what they do for the whole community. So it's important that we start to look at those, because all of us have shifted dramatically. We're using 2 and 3 screens now. We're using the screen for watching TV, while at the same time we're on our tablet checking something else, and we're texting on our phone. So how are we fitting in our sponsors to integrate them into all the different channels that exist? Live streaming, if we're doing it, combined with the social media. Those are all channels that you need to be looking at, including in your inventory and including in your asset list, and then determining how you're going to do it and how you're going to integrate them into that, because these are channels that we've all started to pick up even more than we ever have before. Our time spent on screens has increased dramatically since this time last year, and it's not going to decrease just because the pandemic ends in late 2021 or 2022. Our eyes will still be on the screens, and we need to find a way to make sure we're integrating our sponsor into those screens. The next slide I want to show you here is just about storytelling. If you think back to the last hour and a half, in the last hour and a half, I've given you a lot of data. I've given you a lot of information, but almost every one of it told you a story about the gymnastics club, about the lady that sells in Northern Alberta, about what's happening in Melville. All of these are examples and stories. And that's what you need to be doing. You need to be storytelling. You need to go and listen to the lady at the pharmacy. You need to talk to her and understand her business, but also tell her the story about what happened with the guy that owns the pub. And when you built the program for him, how it changed his ability to actually drive traffic or increase business on Tuesday nights or whatever it was. Tell the stories that exist. If you're a theater company and you're doing live productions on stage, you are storytellers to begin with. So you can tell stories about the productions that you're doing and how you can integrate a sponsor into a production. You know, if you are a municipality, talk about the impact that's that's gone on in the municipality. I'll give you an example, and many of you are probably aware of the little bit of the media frenzy that occurred with the City of Regina's sponsorship program and the policy that was created. And one of the members of council during an executive committee meeting said, I think that we should not allow any oil and gas companies to be sponsors of anything inside the City of Regina. And that raised quite the furlough and quite the excitement. And that next council meeting was over 4 hours long. I know that because I was following it and available to City of Regina as our client. And available to the administration team to help them to answer any questions that may have come up during that period. So I got to watch all 4 hours. But prior to that, the new sponsorship guy for the city, he had one story to tell, and that was to go out and say, hey, the city's now in the sponsorship business. Let's find out about how you've fared through the pandemic, because that is the topic that exists. And it's a topic that exists for every single one of you, that you can go and talk to your local businesses and ask them how they're doing. It has nothing to do with sponsorship. It has nothing to do with sales. It has everything in the world to do about caring and making a difference. And so Corey was prepared to start going out and talking to these businesses, not to sell them sponsorship, but to talk to them and ask them, how are they faring? How has it impacted their staff? How has it impacted their business? Because some of them are doing better. Some of them are doing worse. Some of them never had digitalized menus. Now they have digitalized menus. They never did takeout. They're now doing takeout. It's a great business for them. You know, there's a whole bunch of stuff here, but he needs to go and listen to that. But now he had a second story, because he could always start off and say, hey, you probably heard that we're doing sponsorship in the city because it's been all over the media. And I just want to come and talk to you and find out what you think about us being in the sponsorship business. You know, so there's stories that you can tell, and those don't have to be stories of success or failure. They can just be stories of existence. And I think that that's a critical part to this, is that you need to understand that it's about storytelling. Go back to that slide that I talked about, that 88% of business leaders and decision makers want to have a discussion, not a presentation. And that's what storytelling's about. It's about letting them know that you're building pickleball courts, or that you're looking forward to having a new opening for the museum because it's been closed for the last year, and that these are the things that you envision, and that there's excitement in the community around this. And tell them stories. Tell them most people haven't been in the museum. Tell them what's there. Take them on a tour. Let them experience things and storytell. Don't pitch product. Don't tell them how you can solve their problems without understanding their problems. Just listen, and then tell stories. Tell stories that make people feel comfortable, but are applicable. So if you take nothing else away, I would say that's one of the big things that you should really be considering. And that's exactly what I've done tonight, as I said, in the last hour and a half. And that's storytelling for you. Everything I've delivered had very few statistics. I can give you a lot of stats on sponsorship. I can give you a lot of stats on the digital and new world. But what I did was story told, and that will help you to better understand what you need to do. And really the final step of the 12 is that stewardship and fulfillment will be a test of success. You are going to need to make sure that if you promised that you were going to tweet about them twice a week for an entire year, that you were going to post a video 4 times during the year for them on your Facebook page, and that you were going to run live streaming of the baseball season, every home game for the U13 team, and that you were going to do that, and they would be included as a presenting sponsor of that, and that every kid that played in those games was going to get a coupon to your mulch shop downtown. Then you better make sure you deliver on all of that, because it's critical that you deliver, and that means that what you promised you delivered on. This is a partnership, and partnerships are built on trust. People buy from people they trust and they like. And if they find that you didn't deliver on what you promised, they're not coming back next season or next year. So that's the 12 steps. I put it all on one slide for you so that when you get this in the PDF format, if you want to print it out, you're welcome to print it out and have it all on one page. I've got a couple of last slides here that just I think are kind of important to look at. And one is that what happens if we don't change it all and something magical just happens? Well, there is going to be no magic. There is no silver bullet that's going to save you. Sponsorship is hard work. And in the digital and virtual world that we've shifted into, we've got way more inventory. We've got lots of different unique assets that can help deliver results for your clients, for your partners. But we need to do the 12 steps that we've talked about tonight. We need to take the best of them that are applicable for each of your own organizations and each of your own communities. And we need to take those and we need to apply them. And that's how we'll find success. And we'll find success when we get past those 7 words of, we've always done it that way. So Joni, I'm going to end there. So we've got a half hour left. If there's questions, anybody's got questions, or if any have been sent in or any of that sort of stuff. I hope that all of you have felt that this has given you something to take away and be able to put to use tomorrow and be able to utilize those ideas and concepts.
Thank you so much, Brent. We do have a couple questions here, and I encourage if other people do have additional questions to type them into the Q&A here. So the one question is, how does a small town of say 300 people not burn out their same 5 businesses for sponsorship? Do you go further? Do you ask for more but less times? Just trying to help raise the small businesses as well as the library.
That's a fantastic question, and it's the five, and I'm going to go with the number 5. The 5 businesses in your small community are critical, and to go outside and start to go to the other communities in the area, which might be competitors, small local grocery store versus the co-op in the next community over, or small local tailor shop versus, you know, going into the big city and going to Tip Top, right? That you don't want to bring those other companies in as sponsors until you've exhausted the opportunities and had those discussions with those local businesses. I think that one of the things, and you mentioned this in your question, instead of going back over and over and over again, sit down and plan out a full year with them. And you've already known what they've spent every year for the last 2 or 3 years. They did the golf tournament, they did the gala, they did the, you know, the other fundraiser, they did this, they did that. And if that came to a total of $1,500, then let's talk about, we're going to run one program for you for $1,500. And it might include all of those touch points. It might include more touch points. It might include less, but you don't know that till you've sat down and talked to them. And I can tell you that the impact in Melville has been tremendous. From as she's gone out and talked to the businesses, she's learned a lot about them. And with the 5 in your community, those are 5 businesses that, you know, have supported you inside and out, year in, year out, everything that goes on. Talk to them and find out how you can help them. Go and, instead of asking them for money, start with understanding their business. Start with understanding how you can help them and what they think you can do to help them, because they've never asked, because they're just really good people. And I'll never forget this. We were doing some work. It was a larger organization, bigger city, and a government agency, but it was in Manitoba. And we were working with the MS Society, and they were they'd had a title sponsor for quite a few years for their walk, and that title sponsor had been at 20,000. Then the next year it was at 10,000, and now it was down at 5,000. And so they were, you know, looking for somebody else. And they have been calling on Manitoba Lotteries Corporation for about 3 or 4 years and could never get a meeting. And we had spent about a year working with their fundraiser sponsorship person in their fundraising department, who was dedicated just to sponsorship as opposed to donations. And all the stuff we've talked to you about tonight, we worked with her one-on-one, like, get a meeting with somebody, understand their business, don't pitch them a product, figure out what they're trying to achieve, where do they hurt, custom build the program, all that type of stuff. So she called me one day and she said, hey, listen, I just got a call from Crystal over at Manitoba Lotteries. She's going to meet me tomorrow at 3 o'clock. Should I take the package that we had for this other company, and should I just do a search and replace and put their name in and take them, because it was a pitch for the title naming for the walk? Should I do that? And I just said, you just blew all the money that you spent hiring us for the last year. Don't take anything in. Go in and talk to her. Go and find out about her family. Go in and find out about her business. Go and find out how Lotteries is doing and what their impact is. So she took that advice and she went in and she saw them, and she sat with them, and then she left, and then she called me and said, oh my God, it went amazing. She's such a nice lady, and I didn't pitch her anything, and we had a great conversation. I learned so much. And then my phone started ringing, right? And I'm looking at it and it says Manitoba Lotteries, and I don't know anybody at Manitoba Lotteries. And so I don't even know this Crystal lady. And so I'm thinking something's a little weird here, because the lotteries are calling me and my client's telling me it was a good meeting. The people don't usually call me unless something's gone wrong. So I hung up on the MS Society and I took the call, And the lady said, "Hi, my name is Crystal Roberts. I'm with Manitoba Lotteries. Are you with the partnership group?" And I thought for a moment, and I said, "Yes." And she said, "Are you representing, or do you work with the MS Society?" And I thought, should I lie or should I tell the truth? Well, I better tell the truth. So I said, "Yes." And she said, "I've been doing this for over 20 years, and I have never, ever had a charity come into my office, spend an hour and a half with me, not ask me for money, and want to know how we're doing at the lotteries and how can they help us to do better." And I nearly fell off my chair, she said. And she said that it was the most refreshing opportunity I have ever had in my 20 years. She was here as a partner, not begging for money. And don't tell her this, but we're going to be the new title sponsor, I've decided after she left, of the walk. And we're going to do it for 10 years. They're going to get 40,000 cash, and they're going to get 40,000 in media, because they can't buy media. We're going to buy it for them. And that was it. That was the end of the story, right? But it was because the same thing goes for your 5 businesses. Go and sit and talk to them, because you probably have never asked them, how they're doing, and what are they trying to achieve, and what are their goals, and where are they spending their mother marketing dollars, and how is it working, and what isn't working, and what does work, and how can we help you, instead of how they can help. It's like how you as a library can help them, as opposed to how they can help the library or the gallery or whatever it is. So I would, and then when you build that relationship deeper, you can say to the small independent grocer that's there, "Hey, you know what? You've been a partner. What do you think about us asking Co-op to be a partner as well? You know that people do shop in Yorkton and they go to Co-op or they go into Estevan and they are Weyburn and they shop there as well. Is that a conflict of interest?" And they might say, "Yeah, it really is. Please don't do that. I can't be a sponsor if Co-op's here." Great, now you know the answer. Or they may say, "You know what? I have no problem with that. The people that buy from me buy because I'm local, I'm here, and they don't have to drive. When they need a big grocery shop, they drive into Weyburn and they go to the Co-op." So they know where their place is as a business, and they may not have a problem with it. And now you've got that opportunity, but don't blindside them. Just don't go and talk to these other businesses as you grow your scope without letting them know first. And always trust them to give you the answer. Long-winded, but I hope that answers your question.
Thanks, Brent. There is another question regarding the live streaming idea, and the question is there any issues with telecasting or broadcasting events without consent from all members of, the sports teams or whoever is being broadcasted?
Yes, so just like you would have to have permission to take pictures and share them on, my daughter plays hockey, and she signs up, there's a consent form that says, yeah, we'll let your daughter's image, or will you let your daughter's image go on social media? And you can just add that in. The difference here, though, is that it might be the municipality doing the live stream in their own arena, as opposed to the hockey team themselves posting their own Instagrams posts, or the league doing something. So if it's a municipality, yes, you're going to have to get permission. You're going to have to say, hey, you know what? If you want to play in our arena, here are the rules. In the same way that you would have rules that say, hey, you have to be in and out of the dressing room within 15 minutes. You can't enter the building till 15 minutes before your ice time. You need to leave it 15 minutes after, no showering. I mean, those are protocols that were in place this year here in BC. And so you can add to the protocols, you know what, we're providing live streaming, it's a service. And this is what we're doing. When you sign a lease to use our arena, here's what you have to do. So that's one way of doing it. Another way is going back and asking for the permissions. And if you don't get the permissions, you don't live stream for that team, but you do for another team, right? So.
Thanks, Brent. Just 2 more questions here, and I know the one I would like more information on myself. So we did have a couple people that did ask what kind of platform or program they can use for digital events.
So there's a whole plethora of them. We're not an event management company, so we don't, I don't have the list of platforms. I'm going to tell you though that if you do a Google, this guy's out of the States, but he's good and he's done a lot of research. It's called the Sponsorship Guy. If you Google him, the Sponsorship Guy, he'll come up. And you can tell him I sent you to him or not, doesn't matter. But he did some research back, would have been May last year, and he found over 100 platforms that were available, and he's done the analysis on them, and he's got several that are that he would recommend. The other people that I would look to are event management companies. So if you start to look within the province, there's event management companies based out of most markets the size of Estevan, Weyburn, for sure in Regina and Saskatoon. Those companies that are running live events online would have what platforms? There is right now, and this is sports specific, but Sport Tourism Canada is hosting their annual conference. And it's a virtual conference this year, and that conference is on a platform that they've done the research on, and again they would share that no problem with their experience with it and everything else. So if you go to Krista Benoit, so Krista Benoit BENOIT at Sport Tourism Canada. She's the event company, she operates the event company that runs that live platform. So those are a couple of the ones that you may want to look at.
Great.
We're not, but like I said, we're not an event management company, so we don't do it.
Right. Great, thank you. And the last question, if we still have, I think we still have time here. You talked about, building that inventory of assets. So how do you figure out how to build that inventory you mentioned and then value it? Okay,
so this is going to look like a setup, but I'm going to just switch to this next slide. So this is the least expensive way to do it. Number one, this is my book. I make like $1.87 on every book sold, so I'm not making a living off this, trust me. You can buy it through Chapters, Indigo, Amazon, any of them online, or you can go to our publisher's website at the top there. The first chapter is how to build an inventory. The second chapter is how to value it. All the valuations that we do are in that book. So everything from what's the value of a sponsor's logo on a sponsor page on your website? It's worth about 1/3 of a cent times the number of unique users who go to your website. That's the same metric that we use. Every sponsorship ad agency or sponsorship marketing agency uses in North America. It's what Coca-Cola uses. The data that's in there, the metrics that are there are the same metrics that are used across North America. So those are the book's like $45, I think, delivered or something like that. So that's the least expensive way to do it. The alternative way, there's a few ways. Another alternative way is to hire a company like us. I'm not here to pitch those services. There's us, but there's we have lots of competitors. And so you can hire us to do it. We're just going into Winkler to do it right now in Manitoba. Their entire municipality, all their facilities, their pools, their programming, their events, all that type of stuff. So all of that can be done. Then there's the traditional methods. And these are probably going to be more applicable to most of the smaller organizations. You know, the numbers aren't big when you start looking at the number of people that go through the library in a small town, or the Indian Head Theater, or something like that, or the museum that was mentioned in a town of 300. You know, you're not putting 100,000 people through that are going to see a sign at the front or that are going to follow you on Twitter. So those metrics become, in my estimation, pretty useless. And when we work with smaller organizations, whether they're a charity, whether they're a not-for-profit, whether they're a municipality, doesn't matter. Quite often I'll say, build out your inventory, but don't do the valuations. Because the valuations are going to tell you that logo on your website's worth about 87 cents a year, and that's all it's worth. Or that opportunity at Canada Day, where they've got a booth, they're sampling, they are the presenting sponsor of the live band on stage. It comes to a whopping $125, and you're hoping to get 10 grand for that. So I would encourage you not to use the valuation process for most of the people that are on this call, based on the list that's, you know, that I had from coming from, you know, whether it's Canada Lake, whether it's Arcola. You start to look at the sizes of those communities. I wouldn't use the metrics. What I would use is one of the traditional methods. And the first of the traditional methods is, what do I think it's worth? And it's pulling a number out of the sky, but it's doing comparisons. I'm running a golf tournament. What's the golf tournament in the next community getting? It's on the same type of golf course. It's got the same, we're both serving a steak dinner. It's not that they're doing steak dinner and we're doing hamburgers. It's not that they give a beer to everybody and we give a bottle of water. We're both doing about the same thing, and they're doing $500 for a whole sponsorship. So we should be doing $500 for a whole sponsorship. It's comparative. I'll give you an example in the big world. In the 1980s, McDonald's did massive expansion around the world, but specifically here in Canada in the 1980s. And they spent a ton of money on market research. So they would pick a corner, they'd do all the market research, and then they'd build their building. And then Burger King would decide they needed to build a building too. So instead of doing the market research, they just leased the land on the corner opposite McDonald's. Why spend the money to do something that's already been done by somebody that's really good at it? So they saved a ton of money by doing comparative analysis. McDonald's is going in there, we can go in there too. We don't need to do the market research. They did it for us. So if you've got somebody in the next town over, next community, or even within your own community that's doing something and they're doing a good job with it, and they've got sponsors, and the sponsors seem happy, and they're being successful at selling their sponsorships, then I would copy them and use approximately the same numbers to place the values on them. I would also, if you want to do some research, is go and talk to all their sponsors. I mean, you'll know who they are because I'm just using golf tournament as an example. On their website, it says who's the sponsor of every hole, or you go in their tournament and you find out, or you take pictures, or you send reconnaissance folks in and do it. But you can get the list of sponsors and then go talk to them and say, hey, we're thinking of doing a golf tournament, and we're just doing some research. And we're not asking you to be a sponsor, but you're spending $500 for a hole for sponsorship for this event that goes on. Is that reasonable? Do you think it should be higher? Do you think it should be lower? Do you think, and ask them all those questions. And then it helps you build relationships. I know it's the next town over, but the reality is that it's about talking to people and it's about engaging. So when we do the valuation, I can tell you that it's expensive as heck, but it's a lot of work. And I'm just going to use the city of Winkler as an example. And we're going to interview 25 different staff members, and we're going to understand within intimate stages what the person that runs their Heritage Festival, their Fall Festival, sorry, their Canada Day event, and their Winter Festival, and the Christmas Festival. The people that run those, we're going to spend 2 to 3 hours talking to them and understanding everything about the process that they go through for each of those events. And that'll allow us to build out inventory, and that'll allow us to then not price it at all, but to build out inventory to understand what goes on in the intimacy of running those events. And the same thing, we're going to talk to the Zamboni driver, we're going to talk to the arena manager, we're going to talk to the programming person that's putting on the seniors programming, and we're going to do all that because we're going to have discussions. So building out your inventory, don't go into a closed room, put a sign on it and say, leave me alone, I'm building a sponsorship inventory. Open the door wide, go and talk to everybody in your community that's involved in that museum, whether it's and I'm using museum as an example now, but the curator, the person that does the marketing, the person the volunteers, the head of the volunteer program, the different volunteers, people that have been coming for years and what they think about the exhibits, and people that have designed the exhibits, and understand it. And that's how you'll figure out that, okay, that's the story of the building of the grain elevator, and that grain elevator was, put up by Co-op, and Co-op still has grain elevators. I don't know if they do or not, but and the end result being that, yeah, we can integrate Co-op into that. Thinking about it that way, or the hockey rink, and talk to people who use the hockey rink. Where do you hang out the most? Oh, I always stay inside behind the glass because it's warmer. Oh, so that tells me, okay, there's people that stay inside as opposed to sit in stands. Warmth is important. So maybe we get the city or the town to increase the number of warmers that go in. It's something they should be doing anyway, but now we get somebody to put their name on it. That's an inventory item, right? Now it's an asset. So it's about talking to people and trying to build, when you build this inventory, build it out. There are no stupid ideas. Build it out based on the fact that everything is for sale. Don't go back to that line of, but we've always done it that way, or the board will never agree to that. Put it on the list, include absolutely everything. And then you can take things out if you don't want to sell them. And an example I'll give you is when we did some work for Canadian Cancer Society in Saskatchewan. They have a volunteer hotline that you can call when you're diagnosed with cancer. You can pick up the phone and call them. And when you call them, they'll try and match you with a survivor. So if I called to say, hey, I was diagnosed today with prostate cancer, they'll find a 60-ish old guy that has survived prostate cancer. So when I'm talking to that person and saying, you have no idea what I'm going through, they're going to say, oh yeah, I do, right? But what we discovered by talking to the two ladies that ran that program, 80% of the phone calls that came in went to voicemail. And it's not because they were, gabbing or doing stuff like that. It was because they were on the phone trying to connect people and talk to people, but they called everybody back before they left on every day. So that was an interesting little story. But what it said to me in building an inventory, holy mackerel, 80% of these calls go to voicemail. You know what that means? There's a space for a message in there that says, hey, this is Dilawri Motors. We have the car for you, And so we put in the inventory this space for a sponsor's message on the voicemail on the volunteer program. The volunteer for newly diagnosed patients program. And so the Canadian Cancer Society, they chose to say, not interested. We will never sell that space. It's disgusting. It's out of place. It's not something somebody that's just been diagnosed with cancer wants to hear, and it's not good for the sponsor. It wasn't our job to decide whether it should be there or not. It was our job to identify the asset. And when you're building an inventory, identify all the assets. So that building the inventory can be really fun. It's about trying to identify everything that you could possibly sell or that somebody might want to buy. And then in most of your cases, I wouldn't do the valuation that's in reality check or something like that. I would do comparative analysis or best guess. This has always worked for us. This price seems reasonable, blah, 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 and go from there. It's an ethical thing for me. If you know that the package you're presenting is only worth $150 and you're asking for $5,000, you can do it, maybe. I can't. I have to sleep at night, and if I got the $5,000, I would feel guilty. So, because I know it's only worth 150. So, if I don't know it's only worth 150, I can sell it for $5,000. Does that answer that question?
Thank you very much, Brent.